bash the Lakers' 2019-2020 championship because of where it was won and the unfortunate circumstances in which they won it. I want to address this and ask a question because I need to understand. But before I do so, be sure to hit the like button on your way in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and also that bell so you can be notified when videos goes up. So, back to the topic. When the 2019-2020 season started, it was a foregone conclusion that the two teams that would meet in the Western Conference Finals were going to be the Los Angeles Clippers and the Los Angeles Lakers because both teams had made big acquisitions in the offseason. The Lakers landed Anthony Davis in a blockbuster trade to pair with LeBron James, and the Clippers were able to get Kawhi Leonard and Paul George also in a trade. Now think about this. The year prior in the playoffs, the Clippers came back in a game. They came back from a 30-point deficit to beat KD, Steph, and Clay, those Warriors. So imagine what they would do with the addition of the Claw and Playoff P. So the Clippers won the first two matchups in the season series, and that pretty much made up a lot of people's minds. LA's other team is just tougher and better than the Lakers. Until 2 months later, the Lakers had a weekend that many thought won LeBron his first MVP award since 2013. The Lakers beat the Bucks, who had the best record in the NBA, and also the reigning MVP was on that team. 2 days later, they finally defeated the Clippers, and the world was put on pause. 4 months later, the NBA decided to resume the season and finish out. Many thought they shouldn't crown a champion and should just prepare for next season, but nope, they decided to create a bubble in Orlando, Florida. So the teams that were invited were those who were in the top 8 playoff spots before the shutdown. And if you were at least 3 games within a playoff position, you could also go along. Each team had 8 games to position themselves for seedings. The Lakers played the Clippers and came away with a 2-point win. People didn't really respect the win because there was no Montrezl Harrell, who was out dealing with a personal issue, and there was no Lemon Pepper Lou. We know how that situation went. In fact, their only impressive win in the seeding games were against the Utah Jazz when AD dropped 42 points. The third and final win of the seeding games came when Kyle Kuzma hit a buzzer beater against the Nuggets. And what was so bad about this was Denver didn't play any of their starters down the stretch of that game. They just didn't look good, the Lakers. They just looked like a team who were not ready to compete for a championship. So naturally, you had people counting them out, and even Laker fans saying, okay, let's book it because this core needs another year before they can compete. They didn't look good. Again, they didn't look good heading into the playoffs. And unfortunately for them, the Portland Trail Blazers were the opposite of what the Lakers were looking like. They were on fire. Portland beat out Memphis in the play-in game, so they drew the Lakers in the first round. And of course, you had people saying the Blazers would beat LA. I even heard sweep. And by word of mouth, the Lakers were truly the underdogs because they may be 35 and 39, but the Blazers ain't no true 8 seed, according to the Laker doubters. In game 1, the doubters were rightfully doubting because Portland's defense, who couldn't stop a nosebleed in the seeding games, giving up 123 points per game, held the Lakers to just 93 points and ended up winning the first game of the series. But after that, it was all LA. The Lakers went on to win the next 4 games, and then came the Rockets. The Laker haters, and when I say haters, I mean people who just don't like the Lakers. Like, they just can't stand that purple and gold. And also having LeBron on the team didn't help. But the Laker haters didn't stop there because they told us, do not underestimate small ball. Houston built this team to take down the Lakers. And don't get me wrong, Russ and Harden got off to a slow start on the season, but before the shutdown. But they were balling, after that slow start. But then they traded away the one guy who could match up with AD in height and replace him with PJ Tucker. And no disrespect, but
come on, man. Come on, man.
So once again, the Laker haters were rejoicing because Houston blew LA out in game 1. And then we started to notice a trend because the Lakers went on to win the next 4 games and beat the Rockets in 5 and prove that size does matter. But just to remind you what was going on during the Lakers and Rockets series, the Clippers were dominating the Nuggets, the same Nuggets that just overcame a 3-1 deficit in the previous round against Utah. Clippers went up 3-1 on Denver themselves, and no one thought, man, the Clippers just might blow this 3-1 lead. It ain't over yet. So surely we're about to get the Battle of LA, because of course the Clippers were about to win this series. So the Battle of LA in the Western Conference Finals was about to happen as predicted in the beginning of the season. There was no way to avoid it. But then came Game 7. And when LA's other team blew it, naturally this was blamed on the Lakers, because you had people like Skip Bayless and maybe others saying, the Lakers avoided the Clippers. That's right, because the Clippers, who had the same lead as the Lakers in their series, in fact, the Clippers had a chance to close out their opponent a day before the Lakers. So yeah, the Lakers avoided the Clippers. But the Lakers found themselves settling for the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals, and there were still probably some Laker haters hanging on to the hope that maybe Denver can do it, just maybe, when AD hit that buzzer beater to win Game 2.
And here's Davis, 4-3 in the win. Oh,
There was still a little glimpse of hope that the Nuggets could win, because the Lakers didn't win convincingly, but then the Lakers went up 3-1, and even Laker haters knew the third time would not be a charm for the Nuggets. Lakers closed in 5. So then came the unlikely finals matchup with the Miami Heat. This had Laker haters dreaming, man, if Miami can just do this, and a little of this, then maybe, just maybe, they can win this thing. Nope, Lakers went up 3-1, and you can book it. It is over. Wait, the Heat were able to stay alive, and for the last time, the Laker haters came out in hopes of a Game 7. All the Heat have to do is win this Game 6, and it's anybody's game in Game 7. But nope, Lakers dominated in 6, and they won the championship. So this brings me to my question to all that say the Lakers only won because it was in the bubble. With all the doubt, getting owned by the Clippers in the regular season, playing terrible in the seeding games, and people picking Portland to upset them in the first round, none of you thought they would even make it to the finals. But they did, and they won it. So my question is, if the Lakers only won the title because they were in a bubble, why was it the Lakers that won the championship? Why did the Lakers win the championship?
Why LA?
Why wasn't it Boston? Why not Miami or Milwaukee? Why didn't the Raptors repeat? Why didn't the Clippers win? They were, the better team and had a much talented and tougher roster. What about the Blazers, Rockets? Why aren't we sitting here today with the Utah Jazz as the 2019-2020 champions and saying, man, the Lakers are so sorry they couldn't even win a pandemic championship? With all the contenders playing in that bubble, why were the Lakers the last team standing? Why did the Lakers win the championship if they only won because it was the bubble? Why was it them and not someone else? Like, share, comment, subscribe. Please let me know your answer for this question, because I would really like to know, for all those who criticize and doubt the Lakers championship and, put an asterisk next to it. Why did the Lakers win the championship? Why did they win with no crowd? What was the difference? Please let me know. Until next time, peace.